Assalamu alaikum. How are you today? I hope you're fine. How are you coping in a Western democracy? It's so different. I'm turning 62 this year, 2023, and I lived through apartheid, and now I'm living in a democratic country. And apartheid was a religious state, it was a Christian state. In fact, apartheid was born out of the Afrikaners version of Christianity, if you like. So, everyone my age, we all know what it was like to live under a Christian government and what it's like to live under a democratic government. And in practice, the two are so opposite that it's so easy to work out what is democratic and what is Christian because Christianity is basically the same as Islam in terms of the major do's and don'ts. And after all, democracy was born out of Christianity. Yes, you can trace democracy way back to the ancients, but what has happened is that basically, with the divorce of the church from the state, democracy came about because then people had to work out laws because the laws weren't derived from the Bible. So today we have all these man-made laws, which which basically are the opposite of Christianity. Because at the end of the day, religion is everything. So you either have religion or you have the opposite. You can't just not have religion. If there's no religion, there must be something else in place. So obviously, it's going to be the opposite of religion. And that is why it's so terrible living in a society where there is democracy. There's no respect for old people like me. There's no respect for children. There's no respect for women. In fact, there's now a new thing called gender-based violence, and it's actually female-based violence where women get beaten up and murdered by their partners, life partners, or whatever it's called. They actually murder these women. That's how aggressive society has become. There's, of course, sexual perversion meted out against children and babies, besides the fact that there's human trafficking where children get kidnapped and smuggled across the globe for sexual and slave purposes. They get used as slaves. That's the kind of thing that is going on in today's Western world. And of course, the whole the way to do things in a democratic world is to just ignore those things and to have the attitude that no, we're not a part of that, but it's a part of your bigger society. It's a part it happens right in the area where you live in, maybe even right next door to you. But you are always supposed to keep the shiny side on top. Don't hang out your dirty laundry. And yes, there are bad things that go on in Muslim countries, but not the way things happen in Western countries. I mean, there's complete and utter perversion that goes on in any democratic country. The mafia and gangsters are prevalent, and sometimes they are in control in uh, Western democracies. And it's obvious that that is something that would happen when people are allowed to do whatever they want to do. For every one person who wants to be free to pursue whatever skills he has in terms of a trade or a business, there are nine people who want to be free to indulge in some or other nefarious activities. There are always a lot more who want to do something that is underhanded. And with liberal democracy, everyone is free, so to speak, but then you are also on your own because there is no such thing as support or comfort or assistance by anybody else. It's because everybody is selfishly pursuing their own material goals. That's what they're doing. That's what democracy is about. You have to brainwash people into democracy. You have to have some or other carrot on a stick, and that carrot is always money. And people get convinced that the purpose of life is to acquire money. So there's no such thing as friends, there's no such thing as socializing. It's just the relentless pursuit of money. And yet, all they have to do is look around them. We had people like that, one or two or very few, whose purpose in life was money. And they are still doing that. Nothing else, morning till late at night, pursuing money, making money. I know of people who have retired already with millions in their bank account and they're still doing the same job part time because they can't do it full time, but they're still doing the same job. And it's because they have no other purpose in life. They left school and that's all they did. One thing their entire life. Didn't bother learning. Your life is supposed to be about learning, learning, just learn. And when you travel the world to go and see how other people live. In Islam, you are instructed to travel. You must travel, not to go on holiday. Today, everything is about holiday and about self indulgence. And just stop for a minute and think how stupid it is to spend all that money on a plane ticket to go and lay on a beach somewhere else when you can just as well go to the beach here and lay on. What's the difference? There's no difference. It's still a beach with beach sand and salty sea water. It takes a lot of stupid people to make a democracy. Really, it does. If you in a religious country, the people who don't want to become educated it's always the majority. They are led by people who are educated, not to have a lot of money. Democratic leaders are people who are rich, who have millions, and they become leaders so that they can make millions more. And don't you for one second believe in this trickle down nonsense. Nothing trickles down. Any profits that are made by the ones at the top who start those business projects, they share the profits among themselves. That's why that 5% of people who own everything, they get even richer. And the other 95% who are poor, poor in inverted commas, they stay that way. And that is actually a blessing in disguise. It's just unfortunate that a lot of them don't have anything to eat from one day to the next. That is the only real problem because no one can survive without having something to eat, and that requires money. So it's a sad state of affairs when nobody is helping people who are starving, and it's an even worse situation when there are more and more people daily ending up under the bridge or living in the park or sleeping on the pavements. And that is what's happening here in South Africa. And nobody is saying a thing, not a thing. There's only complaints about Eskom and blackouts where there's no electricity. But as far as starving people goes, that's accepted. That's the norm. That's how far society has gone. And it only seems to be Muslim people who are feeding the starving and the hungry. I don't even want to say hungry because people are starving. It's commendable, but that is what we are supposed to do. We're not supposed to even talk about it. It's just what we have to do. And Muslim people are doing it. I know because I'm involved in stuff like that together with my wife. But I bemoan the society that we are living in, the selfish, self centered, aggressive, self serving. It's actually causing society to decay. And it will be interesting to see what the overall effects is on Muslim society, how it's affecting our community in terms of how we are supposed to live and the force that is being put on the Muslim youth in order to just survive, just to earn a living, to put food on the table. How are they surviving? Those are the kind of research projects that should be done. But we don't see things like that. We don't see the effects of violence on TV and in movies on young people. We don't see the effects of pornography. Oh, yes, we see a lot about smoking here. But what about alcohol? It's 100 times worse than smoking. We don't see any statistics based on that because that is acceptable. That's the norm. Murders, rapes, destruction of families, it's the norm. You will never see statistics on that. I would so much like to move. I wanted to leave South Africa a long time ago. And my sister's daughter left. She went to New Zealand. She eventually came back because of family reasons. And that's the reason that keeps me here. I just can't bear the thought of being away from my family. And not only being away, but leaving them to their own devices. I'm the one who basically does everything for my family. And so I just can't leave. I just can't leave them to it. I know that one day I will have to leave them to it. But of course, not by leaving the country. But by then, I'm hoping to have things in place, inshallah, to make them able to leave themselves if they have to. Because that is where I see South Africa heading to a point of decay where it makes life impossible. And then you can't just go about your daily life avoiding road rage and avoiding hijacking and avoiding criminals. Then you're going to have to leave. We must make dua that that day never happens. But we are supposed to tie up our camel and then go about our business and make dua for uh, the blessing of Allah. But we are not doing that. We're just plodding along day by day. And it's going to get to the point where things become so impossible that we're going to have to do something. And what are we going to do? What is everybody going to do? Just put up with things like you are doing now. That would be a terrible situation. Inshallah, it must never happen. Assalamu alaikum.